Hello, and welcome to Pit Stop. I am your host, Patrick Ronan. Today, I'm joined by the CMO of UserTesting, Michelle Huff. Michelle, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Michelle, for the viewers out there, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Chief Marketing Officer of UserTesting. I'm about 1 year in, actually, and loving it. I'm a coffee fan. I love traveling, love learning about people. So it's a good gig.
Coffee fan, huh? So
Yeah.
would you go Americano or espresso?
Oh, I like both. That's what
Both.
fans like.
Situational.
Totally, right?
Awesome. So now we know a little bit about you and your coffee obsession, just like me. Tell us a little bit about user testing.
Yes. So user testing, I mean, what's interesting is it's most people haven't heard about us. And so I like to describe that we allow customers to walk a mile in their customer shoes. So really, we really believe it's all about customer empathy, right? And really helping people understand and be able to see, hear, and talk to their customers as they experience their products, right? And their applications and their services and their content. And big part is to get human insights, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like with digital transformation, we have so much data at our fingertips. Do you think that all this data and all these insights that we're able to sort of sift through and make decisions based upon, does that help us become more closer to our customers and understanding them, or further away in some aspects?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of both. What you say, I mean, in many ways, what's been interesting is, over these years, we've made huge leaps in creating all these apps and digital products, right? So if you think about just even a bank, years ago, you'd walk into a bank and you can go up and you'd stand in those long queues, right, to deposit your money. And over time, right, the way you interact is mostly with your phone, right? Most people are mobile applications, and that's when you deposit your check your balance, and do all those different things. And what's interesting is before, if you were in the bank and you waited for 30 minutes, you walk up to the line and the person sees the look on your face, right? And they could just sense you're frustrated. Like, I'm so sorry, the person called out sick today. And then you're immediately like, oh yeah, I've been there, right? And you have this little interaction and you can empathize with that whole experience because you see it. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, with all these different types of kiosks and, even phone queues, and we interact with chat bots, and you think of all the different things that are out there, rarely do people who are creating those different engagements and experiences ever actually interact with the customer. Like, we have no idea, right, what that whole journey even looks like. And you really miss out on what that experience is, but you also miss out on understanding who that person is.
Yeah. And one thing that you said that I found very interesting was the idea of customer empathy and sort of understanding the point of view of the customer and maybe tailoring your product based around the customer's needs, as opposed to tailoring your messaging to appeal to a customer. Can you talk about Can you talk about how user testing has helped companies identify the needs of the customer and how they can adjust their product to fit those needs?
Yeah, so it's we think it's important to really have customer empathy, right? And we call our platform the Human Insight Platform. Most people are like, what's a human insight? And it's a big part. We call it the aha moment in the company, because it's really when people take the time to learn and observe with empathy, and then you start seeing and you can able to connect those dots between how people think, see, and feel, right? So they're going through this whole experience and you're like, oh, I see it. So like with our product, right, most of the time you ask people and CEOs and heads of company, do you want to talk to your customers? And I don't think anyone would ever say no, right? The question is how, right? And then how frequently. It's not that hard to say, talk to one of your customers. And some people could find, right, one of their customers, but doing it on a consistent basis, seeing specific examples can be hard. And so we really provide the ability to target different audiences. We give you access over to 1 million people. And then you could really have a live conversation just like you and I are having and ask them different questions. Or you can create these tests and say, I want you to go to this site. I want you to try to buy something, or I want you to try to do something, or I want you to, right? You kind of tell them what you want. And then you're literally are watching them go through that whole experience. And then all the testers really think out loud. So you can really start seeing what they're going through and then hear their moments of delight, but also their moments of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, with data, oftentimes you'll see something went awry, right? You're like, well, suddenly like no one's converting or like something's happening here, and you never hear what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so this really can provide that color, really the context and the why behind the what.
Yeah. So what do you think your customers were doing to get these human insights before user testing and this kind of technology was around?
I used to do it a ton. It's funny because my whole life I've been in either, you know, product management, product marketing, and you're always trying to learn. And we have a ton of researchers and designers. And it's funny when I ask, like, what did you used to do? They're like, oh, don't tell people. But I used to recruit people from Craigslist, you know, like my legal department would freak out, you know, or they'd stand, you know, you go and you stand some, actually our founder, it's a really pretty funny story. When they both kind of created the company, they were testing, they were arguing, I think, about the look and feel of the website.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said he found his best way was standing in a grocery store line because he had a captive audience, right? Like you're standing there and you're ready to like check out. And so then he was like, what do you think about this site, right? And so oftentimes people have found so many different ways of trying to recruit people to talk to. A lot of times people use now forms, right? So, right, every time you're off of the airline, right, you get the like, how was my ride? And any type of comments. And so, I mean, it really helps get a lot more feedback. People also do like click testing, right? So you can kind of go through and decide, okay, like people are clicking on this versus this, and you kind of do the A/B testing. And so there's different approaches people are trying to kind of get more insight. But we really think there's just the difference between the quantitative data, which is super helpful and directional, and then more of the qualitative, which is what we provide, more of the, right, that where you can actually talk and see and understand why, and it pairs very nicely.
So do those interactions actually happen on your platform?
Yes. And so literally we provide the platform to make it super easy to find those people, right? Target, engage and empathize, right? And then be able to, you're watching everything and then people can tag and find and create highlight reels and then share them out with others. And we found a lot of our customers now will, you know, oftentimes it's not just the person who's watching it that is trying to find that insight. They're oftentimes trying to make more confident decisions, right? You're trying to innovate on something and better understand why, or you're trying to understand your competition better so you can differentiate, or you're just trying to create a great experience. And you're trying to get other people to side with you, right? You're like, we're going to make this call, right? We're going to do this. And oftentimes people have to say it based on their own opinions. Mm-hmm. And so what a lot of our customers have started to do is we make it so easy to create these videos that they'll, on their slides, right, we'll say, here's the decision that we're doing. And then let me just show you a few clips. And then you actually start watching, right, people. And then suddenly everyone in the room was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because it's the voice of the customer, right, and not your own opinion.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better when a customer says it than when we say it.
I know, right? No one believes me.
That's really cool. So tell me, how do you find these users? You said you have access to millions of users. Where do these people come from? How do you, you know, I understand as a customer of yours that I can probably fill out some pretty simple demographic type categories to pick my target audience. How do you guys find these users?
Yeah, so we call it a panel, right? A panel with people, and I mean, what's nice is the founder started this company about 10 years ago. So had the luxury of building up that panel over many, many years, and it's really, you know, almost kind of representative of the general population, where, you know, it's a lot of different demographics of age ranges, jobs, locations, geographic locations, you know, likes and dislikes, and so. You know, what's interesting is most people will go through and they'll, it's like even really hard to reach people sometimes. They'll say, I don't even know if you guys will have. And so we'll run little tests. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just found like a bunch of fund managers, or I found, you know, like moms, you know, so often in marketing, you create personas, right? And you're like, oh, this is great for, you know, moms who are divorced, who love coffee or whatever. and then it's like this stagnant, right? It's a pretty flat persona. And so, yeah, you just kind of go in and you find all your different demographics and you can find these different people. And basically over the years, it just was, this, it's like a two-sided marketplace. So we actually have a lot of things to recruit different people. Just over the years, people have heard about us. We have a whole crew, I think, of musicians out in Tennessee that love being a part of it. So there's a lot of different types of people who are on it, retired people, people who are fully employed. It's just a big range. And then, sometimes they do it because they like to see, new products, people who actually test prototypes, so they love that. Some people love it because they feel like, right, it's their voice. They're providing impact into a customer experience. Some people do it for the money. Some people do it because they, for many, many different reasons, but it's a large panel.
Yeah, I recently did a user test myself, and it was because I was a fan of the company and I wanted to just participate and give them my feedback.
Yeah, right.
The way that technology and social media and the way that companies have this voice that they talk to their customers with, it almost encouraged me to want to give back to the company. And that's a really interesting theory that I don't think we had 10 years ago.
Yes, right. Or we've done it in different ways. And one of our parts of our technology, we do have some customers that say, that's great, I sometimes use your panel, but I also have over the years that keep built out, right? My favorite list of customers who love giving us feedback and my loyal customer base, can I use them? And so we allow you to do that too. And you can use all the technology behind the scenes.
So cool. Can you tell me a success story that you guys have had?
Yes, there's a lot. What my favorite one recently I was just telling about is a online store that sells different like shaving different tools. And so if you think about the typical way that metrics have always been shown, people say if you ask less questions, people convert faster, right? Like you've always heard those data points. And so they would always ask questions on the form to better understand, how coarse your beard is, or how often do you like to shave, right? All these different types of questions.
It's very coarse, I can tell you.
I know, right? And then, because I see you, right? The ability of that.
Yes.
They had a certain number of questions, so they started experimenting, right? Which is what we all do, and got rid of a few. And what was interesting is the conversion rates went up. It was great. And then they realized over several months, the lifetime value of their customers started dropping. And so then they were trying to figure out why. And so then they started to they just ran a few tests, and it's different with user tests. Like you're not supposed to run thousands, right? It's the few, because you're trying to kind of start finding these insights. And they ran some of the tests and realized people, when they filled out the forms, right, they felt closer connection to the company. They felt the company was actually, using that data to really drive recommendations. And it, it was just a much deeper kind of connection. And so based on that, they really realized they needed to start adding more and really doing a lot more with that. But it was an interesting insight they wouldn't have found just by data.
Yeah. More personalization came out of it, huh? Very cool.
So more questions.
Yeah. As a company that deals with user testing and is constantly trying to help companies personalize their products for their customers, how have you guys sort of taken that same approach where you have this product that is for other companies? How do you tailor it so it best suits their needs?
Yes, so it's a huge part of our process. So we have a research team kind of fully embedded in product engineering, and we always make sure that we're constantly kind of testing new things. But one recently, we just announced a new solution called Product Insight. And so instead of having, kind of our core product where you could really ask anything you want, we really we used our tools to actually go through and start interviewing and understanding the buyers better, the problem set around building products. And most of them go through a whole product life cycle, from needs discovery, right? What's the actual problem, through kind of concept testing, right? And then some form of like validation. And there's a variety of different steps in there, and optimization. And we realized that people were really wanting input and feedback throughout this whole process. And so we ran a ton of tests, and then we started building out our beta. We launched this year Product Insights. And so my head of product's actually going around and telling people, because people love seeing, what steps did you do and where was the tests? And so there was different feature sets where we were going through our quick answers, where we kind of pre-format all these different questions. So people just kind of fill in a sentence and then automatically kind of churns out the different tests that people take, and then you get a compiled set of insights. And we heard a lot that product managers don't have enough time, and so they had to really tweak things to really make it quicker for them. But yeah, we were constantly using it through the whole life cycle. We've even had customers now say it's like they read my mind when they released it, which is such a great, feedback point. But we really do kind of put it through all parts of the process. And then just even on the marketing side, we're running tests right now on different programs we're running. We launched a telephone tree service. And we actually tested the if people could understand, right? Instead of hearing it and being, I'm so annoyed, there's no option 4 or whatever on there, but just to kind of see what that script looks like. So there's lots of different
agent.
So I know, right? I'm annoyed, hang up. That's not an option.
0.
Yeah.
Interesting. So we sort of alluded to it at the beginning of the conversation that it's almost like companies, for the most part, aren't aware of this technology, of this service that you guys offer. As CMO for user testing, how do you plan on tackling that challenge? How do you bring more awareness to what you guys are doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, a big part of it is most people don't realize that this exists, right? Which is usually when you're creating a new market, a new category, people don't immediately have budget set aside. They don't have an RFP checklist, and so that's something that people don't know about. So we're, obviously from a CMO standpoint, really trying to do a lot more around the brand awareness, become more, write a lot of different thought leadership articles, make sure that people who are building products, designing things, that they realize that this is an option, and start, one part of things that we're really starting to have more conversations around is there's some people who really have heard about us before, but they think about it in a more of a one-time thing. Yeah. And we're starting to see a whole trend around customer empathy, and people really more focused on, it's not trying to just extract an insight from one conversation or one interaction, but this is kind of cumulative effects. So really, how do you start building in a habit of making sure the customer's focused on your business and is at the center of the business? And you have, I think there's some companies who are looking at, I think it's a little political sounding, but like exposure hours, right? Like how often are you actually exposed to your customers, and are you talking to them? And it's really starting to make sure that people have that level of interaction on a consistent basis. So those are some of the things that I think are important for the market to know what I'm trying to do. Always eager for feedback as well.
One thing that I think is really interesting is, I mentioned how you're constantly talking about customer empathy and having these type of insights. As a company, what kind of culture do you guys try to establish and cultivate to have that same perspective on your customers?
Yeah, so what's interesting is our founders really started with a whole, like a top 5 of their cultures they really wanted to make sure they implemented. And they did such a great job. We've been continuing to do that because we brought on board a new CEO last year as well. And the first one is around putting customers first, right? And that's so important. And you can just, a big part of it is how we design our product, how we're thinking of marketing, but it's a huge part of how we do support, right? It's kind of that whole customer experience. Other parts are just, owning results, be kind, get better, keep it simple. So those are all really, what we value. And a big part of that is, right, don't make it too complex for the employees, for the people. Be kind is, obviously you get better interactions with the company, right? When you think about representatives of the brand, if we actually care about the employees and about each other, since that's a part of the customer experience as well, not just the product we're building.
Awesome. So as a big advocate for user testing and human insights, I have to ask this question before we hop in the car and get into that gridlock traffic on 101. What drives you?
What drives me? So I like to fix problems. I'm a problem solver. So that's big, but really it's curiosity of people. I've always, like, a huge part of everything. And when I've been really little, it's always trying to figure, I love new things, any new invention, any new toys, any new thing. And people, I'm always super curious about what makes you tick, what's, how you think about things. And so that's a big factor on me and really trying to have an impact. So.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I tell you what, you guys are doing some really, really awesome work over at User Testing. I know I'm personally interested in it. So
Woohoo!
hopefully in the next, in the next 6 months or something, we can have another conversation, see what problems you've solved. I'm sure you guys are going to be growing exponentially. So I look forward to having more conversations with you. And I just wanted to thank you for your time and the viewers as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. We'll be talking soon. Okay.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.